Coming up this week on the Press Box from Salvatore's at the Garage Door.
I'm Dan Fetes from the Vision High School Sports Beat. Tony Bosch turned himself into the DEA, but things are still going to get worse before they get better.
I'm Dan Moriarty, and I'll tell you why I'm worried about the future of golf.
And I'm John DiTullio. If you are a coach in Greece, you may be nervous.
And I'm Mike Catalana. There's a word I want banned from NFL locker rooms. All that and more coming up on the Rochester Press Box.
The Rochester Press Box is brought to you by Salvatore's at the Garage Door, Rochester's choice winner for Best Pizzeria, featuring Wacky Wing Wednesday and the Super Slice. It's as big as your head. The games are always on at the Garage Door, home to the Rochester Press Box.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Rochester Press Box, coming to you from Salvatore's at the historic Garage Door. Mike Catalana filling in this week for our host, Bill Pucko, but we have quite a group with us today. As always, WHTK, WHAM Radio's John DiTullio.
Mike, I'm a big fan of yours. It's great to be with you, though. Thank you.
And that's part of that contract. He has to say he's a big fan of me. Dan Fetes, back from the high school sports beat. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me here.
You have the Pucko chair. You have to apologize for everything Boston Red Sox.
You got it. I can do that.
All right, that's good. And
Moneyball, too? Is that
yes, exactly. Dan Moriarty, WHAM, with Bob Matthews every night. We hear you on the radio. Good job. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, good to be back.
All right, I want to talk a little golf. LPGA week begins on Monday. We're a golf town, John. We've had golf for decades. We've had majors with the men. I mean, look at what we just had. The PGA last year and the Women's LPGA Championship. We have nothing now. It's gone. Once this tournament leaves, next Sunday,
It's a shame.
we don't have another LPGA on the horizon. We don't know if or when they'll come back. And right now, nothing locked in at Oak Hill. We have no golf on the horizine.
You know what's so funny? Everyone, if you had to label what kind of town are we? Baseball City, USA, something the Red Wings have coined. I've been in this town 17 years. If people ask me, we're a golf town.
Yeah.
We are a golf town. When you host a Ryder Cup, when you have one of the greatest golf courses in the country in Oak Hill, and you've hosted the LPGA for over 30 years, this is a golf town. Will we get an event back? I don't know. We may not get another event back until either the U.S. Open or the PGA comes back to Oak Hill. I think it's, to me, it's sad that there's no buzz at all.
Yeah, for the LPGA.
For the LPGA. I mean, there is zero buzz. I don't take any phone calls on. We won't talk about it. We'll probably have Linda Hampton on as the tournament gets, starts winding down. But it's a shame, Mike, because there was a staple on the tour for over 30 years.
And Dan, people adjusted and accept that tournament, maybe more so than any other city in the country. And people loved going out year after year to the LPGA.
Well, I was one of those guys. I mean, for me, it's sad. I know, like John said, we don't get many calls. Same thing on Matthew's show. So it's tough to get the pulse of the people in Rochester in terms of whether they're going to miss it or not. Personally, though, I'm going to miss it. I learned the game that way. My grandmother took me out there every single year. If you would have asked me as an 8-year-old, like, who's the best golfer out there? I wouldn't have known Jack Nicklaus or Tiger Woods or anything. I would have said Nancy Lopez because of that golf tournament, because that's where I learned the game of golf. My grandma taught me the game, and then she brought me out there every year to learn the game from the women's pros, and I'm going to miss it. But like I said, I don't know right now how the rest of the people feel about it, because like you said, there's no buzz right now. That's
that tournament leaving, Dan. But when you look about the PGA and those players coming in, last year we had them all here. That was our connection with big time sports. I mean, the world watched the Ryder Cup. The world watches the PGA Championship. And right now, Oak Hill, they flirted with the President's Cup. We don't know if that'll happen, but we have nothing in the immediate future.
Nothing. And talk about excitement. My buddies, like you were talking about the LPGA, used to look forward to years ahead of time going, oh, I got to get tickets for the Oak Hill. I got to get tickets for the championship. That was something that you always looked forward to and always kept hope in Rochester that something big was going to come back here. And now that that's gone, like you mentioned, what do we got?
Not much. I mean, just when you look at, I guess the LPGA leaving to me, it's just indicative of what has happened in this town.
Yeah.
What happened with Kodak, what happened with Xerox, what happened with Bosch and Lomb. To a lesser degree, it happened with the LPGA. the LPGA Tour and really never, they're trying to evolve.
Yeah.
But nobody helped Wegmans along the way, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Wegmans
Right.
was out there on an island, so it's gone because we couldn't afford to keep it anymore. Basically, almost the Bills, if you start thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, if you think of it this way, too, the LPGA ended up being too big for the status it probably should have been in this town, which is a great regular tournament. You needed other sponsors to come through, but not the course or not the facility at Locust Hill or even Monroe for a major championship. That's got to be Oak Hill if it ever comes back.
I agree. It's
Yeah.
the only course you play on.
John mentioned the Bills. When we come back, we're going to talk pressure. Pressure on head coach Doug Marrone. How much is there this year? We'll get that when we come back.
President Obama was at the Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown this week.
These are drunken, young knuckleheads.
They just have too much going against them. Kelly Johnson's not the answer at first base.
I like him. This past week, I hated him. Is he the best player in the National League right now? Absolutely, 100%.
And this is such a great story, the story that keeps on giving.
There are those who look at things the way they are and ask why. I dream of things that never were and ask why not.
Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box. Mike Catalana filling in this week for Bill Pucko. Did any of you guys approve Pucko's vacation?
No.
No, he just left on us? He's
ditched
gone.
us.
He'll be back. We'll get him back at some point. We're here at Salvatore's at the garage door. Wacky Wings Wednesday. Come out, have your wings. If you don't like the wings, pizza slices, I believe, the size of your head. And
Mammoth. And the Meat Lovers Calzone, maybe the best bargain in town. It's a football. We could run patterns with that. I say that after the show, before we chomp on it.
you got EJ throwing for those patterns?
I need accuracy. That thing's got to hit me right here. Okay?
All right. To start with that, let's go to EJ and to his head coach. Dan, I want to know, pressure-wise this year, Doug Marrone's just in his second year. He's got a young quarterback. Is there a ton of pressure on him, maybe more so than some other second-year head coaches?
Well, I think the NFL, there's always pressure to win. Just 6 wins a year ago.
Yeah.
They've latched themselves to E.J. Manuel as the quarterback. And I wonder if the pressure's ramping up a bit. Obviously, the ownership situation being in the air it makes it interesting, too. Most coaches in their second year aren't dealing with something like that. But the quarterback. I think the pressure, a lot of it comes down to the quarterback. I think these guys know that they have a good roster. I mean, they made some good additions in the offseason. Defense was good a year ago. They've got some good skill people now on the offensive side of the ball. It comes down to the quarterback who, let's be honest, does not look good in training camp. And I wonder how much more pressure is on these guys now knowing, I mean, you need a quarterback to win. It's tough to win if you only have an average or below average one. It's almost impossible. I mean, how much more pressure does that put on the head coach knowing the quarterback hasn't looked good so far in training camp?
John, he look and sound like he's under a little more
He's
pressure?
cranky. You guys are dealing with him. Last year, he was a little loose. He was smiling and laughing. As Danny mentioned, you need a quarterback. And they, meaning Doug Whaley and Doug Marrone, have hitched their wagon to E.J. Manuel. I'd be stressed, too. Because I would be completely stressed out. Pending ownership, however, Pagula gets it. I think Doug Marrone would be safe. I'm guessing. But his entire legacy, so to speak, or his tenure is going to be hitched to E.J. Manuel. So everything else is in place for him to win. But he's got to get number 3 playing, and number 3 is getting bashed everywhere in the media.
Dan, is it good if there's pressure on the head coach and if that permeates through the whole organization?
Probably a little bit. I mean, I think that means that people are talking about you. I mean, I think for the most part, for the first time in a long time, the Bills are being talked about as a team that can contend for a playoff berth. They haven't had that in a long time. But you talk about E.J. Manuel, you kind of went all in on him. You traded that next year's first-round pick for Sammy Watkins. So you're kind of linked to E.J. for not only this year, but next year as well, because you're not going to be able to take a quarterback in the second round that may be better, maybe, but you're kind of stuck with him for right now, and he's got to start playing.
Hey, John, is that pressure about making the playoffs this year because this team really is good enough or close enough, or is it because they haven't made it for 14 years?
Probably both.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to go into another year, 15 years and counting. I don't think so. But as you mentioned, they are a Andy Dalton away from making the playoffs. If they had an above-average quarterback, this team could punch their playoff ticket. There's no question about it. You know, maybe Doug Marrone just doesn't want to give anything. He doesn't want to talk to anyone. you know what? We're going to let our talking let our play, so to speak, do the talking. Second year, maybe he learned from his first year. Let's not get so chummy.
Because John is a professional radio guy, he knows how to segue. That's going to take us into the next subject. Next segment. When we come back, like it or not, including Andy Dalton and that contract he signed with the Cincinnati Bengals. That comes up when we come back on the Rochester Press Box. Back on the Rochester Press Box, Mike Catalana along with John DiTullio, Dan Fetes, Dan Moriarty. Like it or not segment. John, we're going to start with you. Andy Dalton contract with the Bengals, like it or not?
I like the contract for the Bengals. I think, $25 million guaranteed. Then after that, it basically comes down to one-year deals. So I think the Bengals kind of covered their keisters on that. He hasn't won in the playoffs. He has a team a la the Bills. Very good defense, good running game, stud wide receiver. Everything is in place. So. And I thought about this. Who do the Bengals have in waiting? They don't have anybody. They're kind of stuck with it. They're like the Cowboys. Cowboys are they gave Romo the big money. They're kind of stuck with Romo. The Bengals, a la Doug Marrone, have hitched their wagon to Andy Dalton. In this case, Marvin Lewis. I like it for the Bengals.
Isn't it interesting, Dan, that we worry about, in general, guaranteed money or money for a quarterback? Most important position in sports. It's less guaranteed money than a seventh inning guy out of the bullpen for the Yankees is going to make in guaranteed money when they sign him to a deal.
Well, everyone overreacts to the initial numbers that come out, and I'm sure the agents kind of leak into the media, so it makes it look like a giant contract. And when you see what it actually is, like John said, it's really not that much money, at least guaranteed. And as you said, it's kind of one-year deals on out. If you're the Bengals, though, you didn't have a choice.
Right.
I mean, you have a roster that can win now. They've proven they can at least get to the playoffs, 3 straight years with Andy Dalton? When's the last time the Bengals went to the playoffs 3 straight years? So he's proven he can win in the regular season with the team around him, and I think they've got a pretty good team assembled. So if you don't sign him long term, who's to say you're going to get a better quarterback than Andy Dalton? Is he one of the top tier guys in the league? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But he can get you to the postseason. That's pretty important too.
Absolutely. He's got playoffs 3 straight years. Before this, they were the Bungles, and they had gone to the playoffs twice since 1991. And you talk about guys, Peyton Manning started out his playoff career 0-3. Romo's only made 3 playoff appearances in 8 years. Jake Cutler's only made 2 playoff appearances in 9 years. Why can't you pay this guy? He's proven that he can win. He'll learn to win in the playoffs.
Maybe. The other thing is, you set him on the open market, 6 to 8 teams right away are bidding for Andy Dalton, wouldn't you say? Teams need quarterbacks.
They're ready to ride Eli Manning out on a rail, too, after that abysmal performance against Carolina in the playoffs.
All right, let's change gears here a little bit. We'll talk NBA hoops. Becky Hammon, assistant coach with the San Antonio Spurs, like it or not?
You gotta love it. I think it's a great move. I think it's a great time. She knows basketball. Popovich, everything he seems to do turns out gold, so why wouldn't we trust him? There's been 6 male coaches in the WNBA. Why isn't it time for a female coach to come into the NBA? They're a world kind of team. You talk about Boris Diaw, Tony Parker, Tim Duncan. They always seem to be the trendsetters. They're always doing something different in the NBA, and it's worked for a long time. I trust Greg Popovich.
Yeah, and Dan, it's not like she just is going to all of a sudden be on the court with them. She's been around that team for a while.
Exactly, and I think respect is important. She walks in there and gets immediate respect from them. Duncan and Tony Parker are good friends of hers. She's been in the All-Star game appearances with them during those skills competitions. She knows them. She was around the team last year, had a chance to kind of get her feet wet. And like you said, I mean, if anyone's going to do this, the Spurs are the perfect team to do it first. But I think what's important is the fact that they know her. She's already respected, so she walks in, and they already know that she knows basketball.
Greg Popovich says she's qualified. I have no complaints.
But John,
I have no complaints.
Wouldn't you like to see the Knicks go for her and put her at point guard next year?
She'd be a great point guard. I would put her with Melo. Look out. Clay Anthony Early. Look out with those 3. We haven't had a point guard. Gosh, how far do I got to go back?
She'd be better than your boy Duhon was.
Duhon is the worst point guard the Knicks have ever had. Well, I got to go back to maybe Derek Harper.
Yeah.
The last time I was proud to say the Knicks
have a point
had
guard.
it, not Chris Childs or Charlie Ward. I'd go Derek Harper. I love Derek Harper. And Doc Rivers.
All right, one more. Like it or not, Dan, Tiger Woods winning another major.
It's a great question. I mean, the question used to be, when's he going to break Jack? When's he going to tie Jack and get to 18? Now it's, when's he going to win 15? And it's going to be the toughest one he's ever won in his career if he ever gets there. I think, I mean, as easy as it is to say, the only chance he has at 18 is winning 15. He's got to find a way to break through. He's never had to deal mentally with the stuff he's had to deal with now. Physically, he's had issues before, not a back though. So he's got physical issues. As much as he doesn't want to admit it, he's got confidence issues, or else we'd see him play better on the weekend. And so he's got a lot of demons to deal with now, stuff he didn't have when he had those 14 major championships. If he wins 15, I don't think he'll end up with 15. I think if he wins 15, he'll win more. He may end up just with 14 majors, though.
I think he's got to change everything that he does now. His swing is still too troublesome for his back. Yeah. He comes back too soon. He tries at the wrong times. I think he needed to just stay out for a while. Kept trying to come back.
He's got a bunch of guys on the tour that don't fear him.
Nope.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
There's a group of guys out there that are tremendous players.
He could get some of it back, but we'll see if he gets enough of it back. When we come back, unfinished business. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box. This is the part of the show, guys, you know everybody waits for. It is unfinished business, led off by our leadoff hitter, John DiTullio.
I always loved hitting leadoff back in the day. I'm feeling good. You know, as someone who lives in Greece, loves Greece, pays taxes, where you live you can pay some high taxes, I was embarrassed to be a Greece resident. The Bill Huber situation still burns me. Longtime coach, longtime soccer coach at Greece Athena. Ousted not because he didn't win. In fact, we never got an answer from the Board of Education. There's a couple board members that had it in for Bill Huber. Whatever reason, we'll never know. Stuff has been told to me, which I find it hard to believe, if in fact he was playing favorites because they were part of his summer league. Welcome to high school sports. Travel leagues and hockey helps you at the varsity level. AAU helps you in high school basketball. Bill Huber was a successful coach, still is a successful coach, and I worry about all my other friends who are coaches out in Greece. Hey, if you offend one of the board members, if their son or daughter is not playing, you may be out of a job. And what burns me even more is the fact that the superintendent and the athletic director both wanted Bill Huber back, and the Board of Education said no. We've got major issues out in Greece, and we should all be embarrassed, because why would you want your son or daughter to be part of that community when they got a mess with the Board of Education? Really ticks me off, Mike, the way they handled the situation.
Good point. Dan, what do you got for us?
Well, we started talking about golf. We were just talking about golf last segment. I'll finish with golf. I'm worried about the future of golf right now. We may be looking at a transition from Tiger Woods onto the next era quicker than we had expected. I mean, we expected the guy to maybe get to 18, maybe even more past Jack Nicklaus, which is something brought in mainstream sports fans more than just golf fans. Now Tiger brings in mainstream sports fans more than just golf fans. What is golf going to do if this back injury is more serious than he initially thought, and he's out of the game quicker? Right now, Rory McIlroy is putting together incredible performance after incredible performance, but it doesn't bring in any viewers. We saw this happen at tennis, where a lot of the main stars are overseas or international players, not Americans. So what is golf going to do to transition after Tiger Woods, especially if it's earlier than we initially thought?
Yeah, and it's not just watching pro golf. It's even golf being played.
This past week, Tony Bosch turned himself in to the DEA for his involvement in the biogenesis scandal. Hooray, happy for baseball. And I'm sure a lot of baseball fans out there are very excited the fact to get this guy off the streets. Well, I hate to break it to you, but things are probably going to get worse before they get better in the long term. Supposedly there are 85 more names reported that will be leaked that were also involved in this biogenesis, and I'm sure the MLB will do its due diligence. And also, call me a skeptic, maybe I'm cynical now after the last few years of baseball and all the involvement with steroids, but I'm all for testing, test them, and test them again. The MLB has to do something better. I was skeptical last year when Chris Davis hit 50 home runs, and now he's had a quiet year. I'll be the first one to say it, that Brett Gardner should be tested on a regular basis for now hitting 15 home runs after never hitting double digits before. Things will get better for baseball fans, don't worry, but right now, could get real bad.
As long as your favorite player, Puig, is fine, you're
That's
fine.
it. That's
He's your favorite. All right, last quick thing for me. I want one word taken out of the language in an NFL locker room, and that's the word distraction. I get so tired of hearing them say this. I'm out at Bills camp. You know what? Very little really distracts these guys. We heard Marcel Darius was going to be a distraction. Michael Sam. I haven't paid a stitch of attention to the Rams. I don't think that's any remote distraction at all. Hey, look, if Ray Rice isn't a, quote, distraction to the Ravens, and maybe it should be, then there is no such thing. These guys, for the most part, go about their own business. People acted like Michael Vick was going to be the biggest distraction in the world, and there were actual protests for Michael Vick when he first started playing back in the league, yet the team went on and played, and everything went forward from that point on. It's an overstatement both by the teams and, yes, by the media a lot of times about what is a distraction and what isn't. If a team is playing well, things are going well, they're not distracted. If they're losing, it's because there is a distraction. NFL teams, they're all big boys. They go out and play. They deal with a lot of stuff on and off the field. We make too much of it. They make too much of it. Let's move that word out of the lexicon of what goes on in an NFL locker room. I'm not distracted. That's going to do it for all of us. We want to thank you for being here. Dan, thanks for being back. Dan, we got the two kids with us, John. We hung in there.
They did okay.
Yeah. I'm Mike Catalana. Thanks for watching us here on the Rochester Press Box.